Hello. Excuse me. Welcome to my live stream. Today we're going to do something a little different because today I got that. Is that not good looking or what? So we're going to build this today. So I'm literally opening it. Literally going to cut the two strips and open it right now. How are y'all doing today, guys? Good to see everybody, or be seen by everybody at least. Okay. Let's try and organize things, shall we? So the way I like to do this, and sorry if the crackling of the bags is going to get over the sound of my voice. There's only, I guess, so much I can do about that. But this is set number 1. We got 4 over here. Then 3. Then 2. And 2. And then we have these assortment. Oh, this goes with 4. We'll put that over there. This goes with 1. And this also goes with 4. Okay. And then this one, we'll just assume it's 1. Open the bag up. Uh-oh. Lego's on the floor. Lego down. Man down. Alright. Where'd it go? There we go. So I am pretty meticulous in my Lego building. Maybe not as much as some people. I'm not going to claim that I'm the most meticulous, but we're going to try and do this right first time. Alright. And what I like to do is certainly not preserving the value in the sense that nobody's going to ever use that again, but I do like to keep the bags, and then I'll put them in the box, and I'll keep the box. Preserve some form of value. It's better than having nothing. Though, if you're really worried about value, you shouldn't open it. You should just, I guess, look at the box. But what's the fun in that? You know what I'm saying? So, that's not my style. Put these over here. And so I go ahead and I sort everything. I haven't even opened the book. The book's over here. Haven't even opened the book yet. I'm just going to sort my Legos first. How's it going, Harley? How you doing, buddy? So, as you know, I'm a pretty big space geek. I play Kerbal Space Program. I host a podcast, and am not the only producer, but one of the main producers on Mars Talk with the Mars Society. And I do have the Saturn V set behind me. Actually, I know you can't see it right now, but often when you're looking at my streams, you could probably see it behind me. And so this when I got this set, this was right up my alley. I'll tell you what. You don't want to keep them too close together because you want to be able to identify them. Sometimes they will look like they're one Lego when they're really two. So I don't keep them too terribly neat. I don't need them to be squished up together, but just kind of gathered together. Besides the fact that it makes it easy to find, just because they're grouped. But the other thing about it is it's also easy to find because you've already gone through and you've seen every piece. So you're actually kind of creating a bit of memory for your brain to say, oh, I know where that is because I saw it earlier. Now, working on this dark, I don't usually work on this desk. Working on this dark desk might make something like those hard to see. It's actually harder for me to see than it is for you because you got that glare coming in. But with the shadow, it is kind of hard to see. Looks like we got our first Lego guy. There he is. Come on, say hello. There you go. I haven't played Wallaby Island. I think I'm pretty much done with Wallaby Island, I'll be honest. I haven't been playing City Skylines outside of Discover as of late because when we're playing Discover, you have a limitation on the DLC and assets that you have, and while I know how to go back and forth, and it's easy enough on some level, I found it a little bit onerous to do so. And on top of that, I've been playing Kerbal Space Program a lot. If I hadn't gotten this set, if that didn't just arrive, then I would be playing Kerbal Space Program probably right about now. Alright, next bag open. Alright. Try and keep the Legos from going down. Looks like we got our spacesuits there. That's pretty cool. Alright. So we got, looks like more of these. I wonder why they put these in separate ones and then this one came in that bag. It kind of doesn't make sense to me, but you know what? Lego, they know what they're doing typically, so I'm not going to question it too much. Yeah, we're going to be a little bit cramped for space on this little desk here, but I will make it work. Might have to move these over here. go. Looks like these are all the tiles for the base, which would make sense. I think it's pretty cool because looking at the picture, there's going to be like a little crater. That's what these are going to be for, I think. You're going to have like a little crater, and the surface is not nice and smooth. I love how Lego kind of abstracts all of that. For me, I used to just empty the box and then rage when I can't find that one piece, and I think that's why my mom stopped buying me them. Well, this is not how I did it when I was, a child, but being an adult and being a little bit more anal retentive, we could say. This is now how I do it, and it is how I've taught my son to do it. He's 7 going on 8 years old, and so it takes more time. This is actually not as fast as just going after it, but I also I try and make it an experience, and it is, I think, more fun this way, even though it's not quite as fast. And you'll find that doing this, the build will go really quickly. Alright, and so then we have our Lego guy here. Push this up just a little bit. And when I'm over here, you can see still. Okay. There we go. Okay, curvy flats over here, I think. We'll put these up over here. It's the first time I'm seeing some of these pieces. Like, I don't believe I've ever seen a three square curve like that. I've seen this one before, and I've seen these before, but I haven't seen all that one piece before. So this is the one thing about Legos nowadays. There's a lot more pieces. They've done a lot better job of getting pieces that kind of make things look a little bit cleaner and smoother than they did back when I was a kid. Everything was very boxy back when I was a kid. Okay, so we got round 1 all sorted out. Now we got to open our directions. And then we got our stickers as well. There's a look at the stickers. And there's a look at your book. So, let's take a look here. Let me take a look. That I've kind of showed you guys. It's got a "We choose to go to the moon and do the other things." Okay, humanity's sense of wonder, fascination, and awe in space. I'm not reading all that. I'm sorry. I'll read that at the end if you want me to get to, guys. But I want to get to building. But it's got a lot of cool information about the lunar lander. It's really cool. Oh yeah, Jack. How's it going, buddy? Welcome to the stream. Yeah, this is not. This is just bag 1 that's out on the table right now. I just got 3 other bags. 4 total. They got it all in other languages too. Okay. So I think. Okay, here we go. All right. So finally, I'm gonna actually move my mic a little bit. Guys, can you still hear me all right? I know it's probably not as good as normal, but can you hear me okay? All right, thanks, Harley. Appreciate that, buddy. That's the delay on it, just to give you an idea. It's pretty bad, actually. We'll resort some of this stuff just a little bit. Give myself a little bit more working room here. So what I would like to do is kind of put this here so we can both see it maybe. But alright, here we go. So we're going to take our little Lego guy and put on his head and put on his pants. Where are my pants? Okay, there they are. And then you got his little EVA suit here, and then you got this really nifty little thing. Now, it's interesting, this if I'll try and get it a little bit closer for you guys. This helmet here, the thing does not flip up and down. It just stays. So that's one interesting thing that's different from most other Lego sets I've ever used. Looks like there's also like a place to put different things in here. You know, some of those little snap-in pieces. So it's kind of interesting. Okay, but there's, I don't know if that's Buzz or if that's sorry, I got distracted. Squirrel. I don't know if that's Buzz or if that's Neil Armstrong. So step 1, we take one of these here, and we take a second one. Oh, the second one is smaller. Okay, so one of these smaller ones. Interesting, that's not quite right. I'm already getting problems, so let me get this over here so where I can see it. These all I thought were the same size, but they're 4 off from each other, I guess. Wonder if this is really the gray one. It seems like the color's not quite right there, but okay, that's what that is. So the gray and the black don't look as distinct in the book as they do in real life. Okay, so that's what we do there. We're going to take some 3 pieces here. And one in the center, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pips. Right in the middle. Okay, perfect. Okay, then we go and we another gray on top here. Okay. Put that there. And that there. And that there. Okay. I'm going to take one of these little pips here. I don't know what that actual name might be, but I call it a little pip. Each one of these little ridges or dots or whatever, I call that a pip. And then we're going to go... Okay, let's do these across first. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm probably better at doing this than I am at showing people what I'm doing. Okay, let me look here. Okay. Count the dots, yep. Count the pips. Cool deal here. So then we stick this little guy in here. Let's put that one back. Okay. That looks somewhat like the picture there. And we gotta just keep going. All right. Next page. Finish it off with that piece there. And it looks like we got a frame for our base here. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to set that to the side for now. So it looks like we're going to get a separate one here. I'm going to do this twice. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this. Oops. Okay. Official Lego definition: the bumpy things on the top of a brick are called studs. At the bottom of the brick, the holes that the studs go into are called tubes. Okay, well, I'm probably going to still refer to them as pips out of habit, if nothing else. But thank you for that. That's quite interesting. Okay. So, what are they called? They're called studs and tubes. Studs and tubes. Okay. So we got 2 of these. Now we're going to add that on either side. All right. Next page. Turn it upside down. And I guess we add this one. That look about right, boys? That doesn't look right to me. Ah, I see what's going on. Okay. So we're going to put this on here. And put that right there. Okay. Now we're cooking with Crisco. I'm sorry, I'm bringing it off screen and you can't see what I'm doing. I apologize. What is good for you guys is not always the easiest for me, but I will work with it. It's my first Lego stream ever, so. Okay, so there's those 2 pieces. We're going to take it, and looks like we're going to throw it right on here like this. Get all the pips into the tubes. Bam. Now, I think I missed something here. I did. I missed putting these things in. I guess right here. Okie dokie. Now, get all those big things out of the way. I'm going to move all this up. Ooh, okay. And we'll turn the page. At 6 o'clock we'll be playing Lego Discover. Yeah, actually, come 6 o'clock I'm gonna have to be going. My son has a little play, or I don't know. They did something. Oh, I missed another something, didn't I? I did. Oh man, you guys got to get on my butt. You can't let me miss something like that. Y'all better be paying attention, because Lord knows I'm not. Yeah, but anyway, my son at 7 o'clock, he has a performance. He's going to perform a song or something like that he's been doing at his daycare, so I want to make sure. Yeah, this is the way to go. Okay. Because I'm trying to pay attention to where that little white line is there, so. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'll probably get to Discover today. It just will be later in the evening. Discover. Eh? Swedish on the boot, eh? Alright. So we got those on. Now, looks like we're going to use these 2. the ends here. And blam, Apollo 11 lunar lander. Ta-da! Okay. Okay, looks like need to keep my orientation here. Okay, so we're gonna actually start off with one of these. And we'll go to this. Then we will go to one of these. And then two of these. And we're backing out of the same pattern. Guessing the Scott got to you and got you in the mood for Lego. Honestly, this Lego set just released June 1st, and so it came in the mail today. And within about 15 minutes of me getting it from my front door, I started playing. Oh boy, Sis got the phone. Gotta watch out. Oh, I put this in the wrong spot. Let's use our little handy dandy thing, man. Actually, before these came in every set, I bought one that it doesn't look quite like this. It looks a little bit different, but is essentially the same thing. I had bought one of those way back in the day because, man, I don't know how many fingernails I took out trying to pick a Lego off. You know what I mean? But here we go. Gotta keep an eye on that, Sis. Alright, there we go. I think I did that right. Okay. So now we're going to go to the next one here. We're going to do actually two wide. If I could manage to move these over here, move these over there, move these over here. And I can maybe, just maybe, scoot that up here. Oh, okay. That feels comfortable. Alright. So we're looking over here right now. We've got one of these little pips right here. And bingo. That's all done. All right. Two more here. I was science class today, and my teacher accidentally showed us a secret file on his computer. One of the files was called Ricky. That's funny. Is that it? I feel like I'm missing something. What am I missing? These two things. There we go. Okay, moving on to over here. Got a little zipper action going on there. Okay. I'll put that there. And that's next to it. And that is next to that. And cool beans. Okay. And then we need to put one of these up here, I guess. Bingo. All right. On to the next page. 4 more of those. Okay. Okay. Looks like we're going to finish her off with one of those. One of these. Ta-da! Okay. Next layer. Okay. So I think we'll put this. I bet you that's where the lander legs are going to go. If I'm a betting man, that's what I'm betting. Okay. Now we're going to get some of these lighter gray ones. So we've got to kind of figure out, okay, this is where we go here, and then we're going to go off of one. And it's going to be right there. Bam, just like that. Runaway flagpole. Alright, does that look right to you guys? Looks right to me. Yep. I feel like a lunkhead. I closed my web browser. Well, I don't know what to tell you, Jack. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Okay, so now we're going to use, well, these guys here, it looks like. And I'm still betting on the lander legs. This is only confirming my suspicions, I think. Thank you, buddy. All right. Man, your sister keeps on getting that that thing. You know, it actually hides. We're just gonna hide her comment. Her comment won't even show up. What's going on with her? What's she doing? How old is she? Alright, looks like that goes half on, half off right there. This one looks like it's going right here. And this one looks like it's going right there. Okay. Now on to over here. Gonna have these guys. Guess this is getting prepared for our crater, it looks like. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna get a bunch of these and a bunch of these. Looks like we start here with one of those, and then we go for a longer one, a 3-pip one, and then a 2-pip one, and a 3-pip one. Alright, and 2-pip start, then 3 pips, 2 pips, and 3 pips. Alright. And then we finish her off over here. 2, 3, 2, 3. Quite a neat little effect. And there you go. I think I'm too close. Not sure what you mean by that, Jack Daniels. But we'll turn the page here. $14 of these little suckers going all around the map. I like how they highlight them in red. I don't know if you can see that, but they didn't used to do that. You used to just have to find it, but man, on this one, I could see how that would be pretty hard. So having them outlined in red makes it a lot easier to figure out what am I adding. I like that. Yeah, sorry about the glare. I don't know here what I can try and do. Maybe that'll help the glare. Oh, another Lego down. Ah. Is that better? Only so much I could do about that. Okay. So I'm going to continue here. I'm looking right here. And I'm moving over to here. Then I'm moving on to there. Well, I can certainly see it. Alright, and then here. Okay, there we go. And then we got this one guy that's kind of lonesome. It's 2 pips off from the corner there. There's that one. And this one, it looks like I got an extra one. And I'm gonna choose to just kind of throw it in here. Alright. Now we go for our crater rim. Pretty cool, man. I like that crater. Alright. Now for the flag. America! Woo! Looks like the flag actually goes this way. Okay. I'll stick that right in there. Try and make it full staff, not half staff. And there you got your flag. Looking gorgeous. Alright, and now we're on to bag 2. So I will put this aside for the moment. Looks like we get a little extra piece right there. Okay. Looks like we got a lot of these doodads here. Yep, it was getting there. Tranquility Base. Okay. Sorry, I know I'm putting these off screen, but that way I can keep what I'm building on screen. Put that over there. Okay. Lots of black. Uh-oh. Peace down. Alright. Well, that's my doorbell, so give me a minute, guys. Okay, I'm back. Good night, Harley, by the way, if you're not already gone. Just noticed that. So I just finished Game of Thrones. Has everybody seen Game of Thrones? Alright, I don't know where I'm going to put all this stuff. Just started watching it. Well, what episode are you on, Jack? I've never seen that piece before. It's kind of interesting. Now that's a classic piece right there. Well, it's gotten all blurry, hasn't it? Come on, focus. Focus. There we go. It's just like my son, I got reminded to focus. It's my dog barking at the guy aerating the lawn. Okay, wait a minute. That's my backyard. Somebody's back in my backyard. Watch the first 2 episodes. Okay. Well, you only got about, 30 more hours a night to go. Thinking about going to see the X-Men movie tonight. Or not tonight, this weekend is what I meant to say. So we go pretty quick, so... Okay. Nope, not okay. I still got this bag. Oh my gosh. So many pieces in this set. Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Scat? Welcome to the party. Can you tell where I use my mouse? Stripped away that veneer completely, man. And these are interesting. Party till it's a Lego party. Bow, bow, bow. Yeah, now that Scott's here, that ought to liven the conversation up a little bit. So how you feeling, Scott? Are you feeling any better? I know you were talking about being you had been feeling sick past couple days with your throat. You know, it's just the veneer coming off the desk, Jack. There's a lot of ball and socket joint things here. I can tell you that much. It's actually easier to see on the screen than it is for me. Lego Transformer. Heck yeah. Alright. I think I'm going to set that to the side for now. And we start off with that. Oh man. We're going to go after it hardcore. They ain't dicking around. I don't know if you can see that. They are not dicking around. Okay. So we take... Looks like one of these pieces here. And you do that 4 times. That might be problematic. So I don't... Oh, here it is. Didn't make it into the same pile as the other ones. Okay, there we go. Opened up the window shades there. Okay, and you turn them over, all of them. Try and keep them all straight, like that. Okay. And then we're going to go for these. Nope. Bam, 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 bam. I don't know, I got an hour and 45 minutes. I bet you I can get this done. I'll take that bet. I think this is going to be the hardest part right here. What I'm doing right now. Actually, what I already did, sorting all these pieces out, was the hardest part. Now I just, look at the directions and be a monkey and do it. Oh my gosh. Just crumbled in my arms. I mean, you're sharing all these links. I don't even know what y'all are doing. I'm not going to take the time to look at it. You got to focus. What are y'all watching? This is bag number 2. There's really, like, it's step number 2. There was really two big bags of it for bag number 2. Okay, I think I'm on the last step of this thing here. So we put these little tips. Nope, I'm not. Holy Jesus, okay. So now we gotta put these on like that. 4 total. 4 steps total. I don't know about 4 bags, but 4 steps. So. It's not the biggest set ever. I mean, I've definitely had bigger sets. My X-Wing and my Saturn V were both larger sets. I'm looking at the box here. Let's see. Oh, this is the back of the box. It doesn't show it. Sorry, Rocky Puppy Dog. There's Rocky the Puppy Dog. Say hello to all your fans. $11 or 12-hour build. Woo! Okay. Now we take them and we stick them on here. Oh, this is not... Right, there we go. Oh, it's slipping on me, isn't it? There we go. Ta-da! I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with whoever figures these things out. Like, I wouldn't. I'm pretty creative with my Legos, but I'm never going to do something like this with my Legos. Like, not this detailed, not this crazy. It's just, it's something else. Yeah, so this is literally the bottom of the lander, and it's going to be built up from there. And the legs will go down. Looks like they'll come off from like maybe like right here, and they'll go down or something like that. You'll see. Just be patient. Okay, and next thing. Now let's see what this is all about on my phone. Okay. All right. What step am I on? I'm on step 4 here. You take these. How is this supposed to go? Ah, got it. See, I made my own little city. I had an entire city. I had the old shuttle set, and so I had a little place for my shuttle launch. I had a electric Lego train set, and then I had a boat ramp, and then I had like a little fire station and a little office building and cars and an 18-wheeler. So I had like a little town that I made. And a lot of those were sets, but then I would take the sets and I would augment them quite a bit. I'm only watching half the video, huh? Okay. We're gonna put that there. All right. Okay. Oh, so we're going to leave the 4-way symmetry and go to just, or the 2-way symmetry and just go to 1-way symmetry. So I got to make 2 of these. And take this piece and put that piece on there on either side. Do that twice. And then trying to figure out exactly where it goes. It goes right there like that. Okay. Then looks like we're going to take a couple of these grays here. Throw those on the bottom. Put that on. You got these big white blocks. You got this gray pip here. That one there. And then looks like it goes right there like that. Okay. I'm going to take this guy here. Stick it right there. Take these 2 blue guys. Stick it right in the center there. And take these 4 guys and throw them on right there. I'm going to take 2 more of these, stick that there and there. And looks like also over here. Come on. Work with me, people. Work with me, people. All I freaking want is absolute total perfection. Is that too much to ask for? Just want some freaking sharks with freaking laser beams on attached to their freaking heads. Okay. All right. Click, click. That's funny. Okay. So looks like we're going to do some side building a little bit here. So you take this guy here, like that. And then looks like it's a 3x2 pip. Goes on the back. You do that twice. You need to take these two doodads and throw those on. Bingo. Okay, and then we get those wankers. Okay, and then throw those on. That's my first click. Alright. Now, put that in the center, right there. You see that little doodad right there? I'm going to fold it right on down and click it in. Same thing with the other side. And we'll do the same thing over here. All right. Take these little doodads. Throw them on here. And turn the page. All right. Hello. Pay attention to what we're doing, guys. Like, seriously, dude? For reals? Okay. Okay. Nobody noticed. Better not. Okay. Where are they clicking in? I think they click in right there. It shows white being that way and then that way. Which I imagine is liquid oxygen and hydrazine. Liquid fuel and oxidizer. That's what I imagine that is. Now here it says, the lunar lander carried both fuel and oxidizer to ignite the hypergolic fuels, since it was not possible to use fuel without an oxidizer in space. So, in order to have a flame, you need oxygen, right? And in space, there is no atmosphere, so you got to bring the oxygen with you. Alright, set that to the side for now, I think. Way to the side. Okay. You do this twice. Alright. Scott, to answer your question, going back to this, I think was your question. So that's oxidizer. That's liquid oxygen in there, and then that's basically something very close to what you would call kerosene. It's a little bit more refined than the kerosene you might have in a lamp, but that's what that is kerosene. A highly refined type of kerosene, so they just call it fuel. They call it a hypergolic fuel, and then that is oxidizer. And so they're both liquid, and they both are probably located slightly different on the actual lunar lander than they show here. But what happens is basically that goes into your engines, which will then, once they combine, then they will ignite in a chemical reaction, and that ignition creates a rapidly expanding gas known as a controlled explosion. Then the nozzle of the engine, which I don't have anything to point it to, but the nozzle of the engine will then point that explosion in a particular direction. And that's how rocket science works. Okay. Back to Legos. What am I doing? Okay. Moving on to these things, I think. That's not correct. I did something wrong. Got confused. Okay. There you go. Now where you at? Now there you go. Freeze frame. Peanut butter jelly time. Now those goes up on top. That's all right, buddy. Yeah. I don't know. Did you ever answer the question? Are you feeling all right? Are you feeling any better? So here's something curious that they've done. So take a look at this. They had me put those golden colored, if I can get it to focus. Come on, focus. You might have given me the answer and I didn't read it. Why can't we focus though? There we go. Okay, thank you for your answer, buddy. I hope you continue to feel better. So anyway, so they have these golden little pips here, and then they have us put that special piece in that has the hole in the top. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to put something on top of that. But then what they had me go and do is take one of these and cover it up. What's up with that? Very curious. Okay, and then stick these guys in there. Lego does Lego things that don't quite make sense. You don't question it. Alright. And we go back to our project here. I'm looking at it this way. It's supposed to go right in there like that. Okay. So right there and right there, that's all that's holding that whole piece on. Just like that. Okay, ta-da! Okay. So now we put these two on. This looks somewhat familiar. So far, this is identical to these over here. But this is different. That's what she said, Jack. That's what she said. there's those little gold pieces again. But they are slightly different. They're leaving more space right here for something. Now you do a separate, okay. We'll take this. That like that. And that like that. Stick that there. Oh, we're making the camera. This is the camera that actually, the most famous picture from the moon was taken with this camera. It's pretty cool. So it looks like that's gonna pop. Oh, here, let me put it actually on screen. So that's gonna be the side, right? And that pops out to take pictures. The camera, I'm reading right here. Come on, focus, dude. There we go. The camera in quadrant 4 filmed Armstrong as he climbed down the ladder and placed his foot on the moon. There you go. Yeah, the picture, the video that you see, that says "Live from the Moon" on CBS with Walter Cronkite, and it shows Neil Armstrong jumping down and saying "One small step for man, One giant leap for mankind. That was that camera. I need my little Zelda burr, 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 or ba-da-da-da-da, or whatever it says. Da-da-da-da. There we go. That's what it is. Oh, this camera focusing is kind of bugging me, though. All right, last quadrant. Hello, Lego Builder. Welcome to it. All right. So I take this, put that on there, put that on there, and I get number 5 off of here. Dun da da da. Dun da da. Don't worry, there's more bags, Jack. Don't you worry. Alright, now. So they're just kind of going in right there. The laser reflector in quadrant 2 was placed on the surface of the moon. When a laser light was pointed at it from Earth, the distance to the moon could be measured. And it's still there today, and they still use that to measure the distance of the moon. Interesting, interesting. Bum-ba-da-dum. Okay. Haven't used this. Still have more pieces. Okay. So we gotta figure out which quadrant is that. Okay. There we go. Okay. So number 9. Wish they would have told me to do that while I still had the piece off, but. Number 8. Number 14. So, there are a lot of Lego sets that I like, so I would have to categorize it. Because it depends. You know, when I was growing up, I had this really cool 18-wheeler. That's nice and crooked. Oh, well. I had a really cool 18-wheeler, and I liked that a lot. But then I also, I have my Saturn V rocket behind me here, and I don't know if you can see it. And that Saturn V is pretty stinking cool. Though I'm digging this set too. Though I'm still very much in the midst of it. Okay. Now, turn it back over. Take this piece, stick it here. Okay. And then yeah, okay. So we're gonna now put on here number 9 again. Okay, and then number 7. And number 12. Alright, I think we're done with the stickers for now. Now we take these 4 doodads and we stick them all right here. And that locks the quadrants on. Okay. You got all these extra pieces. Actually, these are not extra. I forgot to put those on. I know exactly where they're supposed to go, too. But it's in a place that nobody will ever see, and I'm not going to put it on there. So, an imperfect set to go with an imperfect person. Okay. Turn the page. Open bag number 3! Yay! Okay. Oh yeah, we're doing lander legs, baby. Bag 3 hype. I know exactly where those pieces go, too. You know those golden pips I was showing you earlier? It it goes. I didn't put them underneath the golden pips on the first 2 of the 4 quadrants, and so that's where those came from. That's where those were supposed to go. But oh well. Before 7 p.m.? I bet you it does. It seems a lot smaller than the last one. Last one took me what, 1 hour? Yeah, this is gonna take maybe 15 minutes, I'm telling you. It's a really different piece. Yeah, I figured it was your turn, so it's 5:14 here. So I assume it's 6:15 or yeah, 6:15 there. That's another new looking piece I've never seen before. I've seen pieces similar to it, but not this particular configuration. Sorry about the focus, man. It's just no good. All right. Tiny pieces. Hashtag tiny pieces for bag number 3, I'm telling you. Oh my gosh. That would be murder to try and rummage through the bag. Oh my god. No thank you. Probably should have done those separately, but I didn't, so. We're going to just have a few of these. Just, you know, just a couple. Just a few. Interesting piece. Wow. I've never seen that before either. That's new. Well, I bet you could use it for that, Jack Daniels. Ah. Up, the family's home. I'm going to turn off the audio for a minute. Alright, guys, I'm back. Glad to see everybody stick around for me. Appreciate it. Make up what I'm saying, huh? Okay. Man, all kinds of tiny little connector pieces, I'm telling you. I don't know. I might have spoke too soon. This looks like it's going to be a pretty technical batch here. Your mother does not smell of elderberries. Huh? Is that what I was saying? No flipping off. I didn't flip you guys off. I wouldn't do that. If I did, you wouldn't. It wouldn't be subtle. Let me put it that way. Anybody need a rod? Okay. Oh, because I got to start over here, not over here. Okay. Hey, Peter. Want to come in here with me? What you doing? Are you watching some TV? You watching TV? Okay. Love you. Ah, the good babysitter. TV. Classic. Hey, you know, it doesn't count as 28 minutes when I had to get up and go and say hello to my wife and my son and all that stuff. Come on. And this is not straight building. All right. So we are going to put that like that. In one of these. Like that. Jack is my minutes man. And nominate him to do minutes for the next city after Discover. Okay. Next page. The foil on the lunar lander was used for thermal and micrometeoroid protection. That's all I have to say about that. Oh my goodness, look at all these pieces. Okay. This is going to take some time. It's pretty solid, I gotta say. I mean, there's some parts that are a little bit still loose, but for the most part, man, I'm not breaking pieces off, and I'm handling it, so it's doing all right. Okay, now rinse. Rinse and repeat. Try and keep it where y'all can see it, sorry. Alright, 2 of 4, rinse and repeat. That one was giving me trouble. Rinse and repeat. All right. Is that the most fun you ever had in your life, or what, guys? Okay. Now, gonna make some landing legs times 4. So, let us begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll take 4 of these. Alright, bingo. Now, next step. One thing about this Lego set is, it is starting to be a bit repetitive, having everything done basically 4 times. But, you know, when you have... It kind of is what it is. It's not like they try to make it that way. It's just the way it is. Okay, so we get one of these. And then a red deal. And a black deal. And one of those. Except it goes that way. Okay. So take one of those. And take the red piece here. And you snap it in. Take black piece there. And snap it in. Take that piece there, put it on, and that piece there, put it on. And snap it on. Okay. Wrong one. Okay. Bingo. Okay, now Uh-oh, PB&J is out. That's no good. Because you know it's peanut butter jelly time. That's probably not good for you, Jack Daniels. I'm just saying, buddy. I don't know much, but that's my take on it. Yeah, you need more than just sugar. You need some protein, bro. I mean, come on, bro. You gotta get that protein, bro. You gotta pump up. You gotta pump up. You gotta pull it. You got to get it. You got to pump up. Stop being such a girly, man. Don't worry about the plane. You get to the chopper. So there is some protein in peanut butter, I guess, but I don't know. I'm still not buying that's sufficient. I ain't buying that. So you had a pizza just the other day, though. Hey, you ordered a pizza not like the other day. I remember this. Something's not adding up here, buddy. Something's not adding up. What are you talking about over here? And that's pretty slick. They got that seem pretty stinking tight for the fact that this was built completely separate and just popped on the way it was. I'm impressed. I gotta say, that is slicker than most builds. Hmm. They have, indeed. Somebody been practicing. I know that much. Okay. Oh, look. It's the leg. Okay. This is only times 3? Okay. It's like Jack's now. Run away. Well, I am glad you are feeling tired. Glad I could help by making such an entertaining deal. Yeah, steroids will do that to you, won't they? Dude's on the roids. He's really wanting to get buff. All right, brah. Where'd you get the roids, brah? You want to go, brah? Oh, I'm missing a spacer. You've got to put this spacer on. That doesn't look fabulous. I'm confused. Something's not right. Okay, I missed this step here. Okay. Okay. A lovely gentleman by the river. Near Three Gems. What about the bowling alley? Was it behind the bowling alley? I knew it was that guy behind the bowling alley. Interesting. And Jack, you are sadly right. There are times at work I just can't listen to his videos but fall asleep. I know, man. I like artists, but sometimes, and I'm not saying my videos are way better or something like that. I don't know. They probably not half the time, but woo, he's got one of them voices. Okay, now we're gonna take this guy here. And then number 6. This is one of my favorite pieces right here. I'll show you in a second. Is that not cool or what? I think that's the coolest thing since toilet paper right there. Okay. Uh-oh. Camera down. Well, he is a lawyer, so he probably keeps his cool a lot. Dun da da da. Whoops. Wrong ones. Oh no. Okay, let's try this again, shall we? That's pretty cool. See if I can do it where y'all can watch. Oh, you know, yeah, okay, Jack Daniels, you're right. Once I realized how technical it was, I did say I might have spoke too soon, though. I do want to point that out. Okay. Alright, boys. That was my 15-minute warning before I have to leave to go watch my kids sing. So. Must have been taking a tinkle, huh? Okay. All right. Okay, it's bag 4. I'll go ahead and get started. And look, we got all this extra stuff here. It's bag 4, but I probably won't be able to finish it. I'll probably just be able to set the Legos up, and I'll probably go and go watch my son sing, and then I will come back and finish this up on a second stream, I guess. This is not the piece that I would have imagined to have, a big windshield. Um, I bet you this is a lot better. So, what I was trying to say earlier was that I'm going to have to leave at this point about 5 minutes, and so when that happens, I'll just turn the stream off and continue it when I get back from watching my son sing. Not choir. He's 7. They just did like a vacation Bible school or something. Not sure exactly what. And just gonna sing in front. Just gonna sing in front of all the parents, pretty much. You're not supposed to see the alien. Well, that's so. I just looked up to see all the comments about religion. Yeah, I mean, I'm atheist myself, but um, the school he's going to, the daycare he's been going to since he was 6 months old, they do a good job, and you know, I don't have a problem with my son being exposed to that. So it's one of those things where I'm gonna let him make up his own mind. I'm not gonna tell him what to think. I'm gonna teach him how to think. Are we ready? All right, guys. That's my stream. I'll be back after I go see my son. Talk to y'all later. Bye.